The air within the courtroom was thick, nearly too heavy to inhale. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. Fear of what was about to occur. All eyes were on the double doors in the rear. Cameras poised, pens over notepads. And the quiet whir of the air conditioner were the only sounds until click, click, click. The stiletto echo of high heels sliced through the tension like a knife. Meri Brown had arrived. She didn't hurry. She didn't dart nervous glances about like someone fearful of the spotlight. No. Each step was measured, deliberate, controlled. Her expression was inscrutable. She wasn't laughing, she wasn't sobbing. But clutched in her hand, she carried one thing. A fat, sealed envelope. It wasn't typical. The document was thick, the corners frayed as if it had been touched 100 times but never opened. And in the courtroom's poor light, the seal, a rich, wax red, appeared almost to shine. All the camera lenses moved to it at once. Reporters murmured to one another, jotting down possibilities. What's inside? Why has no one ever looked at it until today? Could it overturn the verdict? Could it ruin the Browns for good? Kody Brown sat at the defense table next to Robyn, his shoulders rigid. When he caught sight of Meri, his eyes clenched, but his face blanched. He slumped forward to Robyn and growled something inaudible. She did not respond. Her jaw was clenched, her fingers closing hard around the arm of her chair. Meri didn't glance at them. She strode directly to her attorney, set the envelope down quietly on the table, and sat. The judge, a graying man with silver hair and a face chiseled from stone, raised his gavel and struck it once. The bang rang off the walls. "This court will hear the truth today," he said slowly, each word slicing through glass. "And once it's spoken, there's no turning back." It was the sort of declaration judges don't make, the sort that makes everyone in the room lean forward in their chairs. Even the bailiff, standing statue-like by the wall, looked over at Meri. In the gallery, the air was electric. Thousands of people sat shoulder to shoulder. Sister Wives fans, who had been camping out since before dawn, gossip magazine reporters, a few hard-nosed investigative journalists, and even some estranged family members who hadn't been seen in years. Seated in the corner, with her arms crossed over her chest, was Christine Brown. A few rows behind her, Janelle's face was as unreadable as ever. Both of them maintained their eyes on Meri, not on Kody. Whispers spread through the crowd like ripples. "That's it, that's the envelope. I heard it contains bank records." "No. It's divorce papers." "What if it's evidence that she's lying?" The bailiff growled, quiet in the gallery, and the whispers ceased immediately. But the tension did not. The judge shuffled papers and regarded the attorneys. "This case has taken weeks," he declared. "Fraud, betrayal, and theft have been hurled around this courtroom like confetti. But today, we bring it to an end." Kody's lawyer stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. He smiled, the smile you reserve when you believe you're going to win. Robyn put her hand on his arm, glancing at Meri with a mix of anger and fear. But Meri sat utterly still. Not a fidget, not a misplaced blink. She presented more like the judge than like the defendant. That envelope rested directly in front of her, precisely centered on the glossy surface of the defense table. The seal of wax reflected the flash of the cameras. Everyone in that room knew somehow. Whatever was inside there was going to alter everything. The judge addressed them once more. "First, let me make something clear to everyone here. And that includes the media. What is said in any evidence that comes forward today will be public record. Once it is said here, you can't unsay it. Do you all comprehend?" Meri didn't voice the words. She merely nodded once slowly. Kody also hesitated, before nodding. A front-row reporter scribbled frantically. Meri unshaken. Kody tense. Envelope potentially key evidence. The judge looked at the clock. "Okay, let's start with opening statements. Mr. Simmons, the prosecution can go first." Kody's attorney stood up again, adjusting his tie. He began discussing trust and betrayal and unreversible harm to the family. He discussed missing money, leaked papers, and how Meri was the only person with access to particular files. But nobody, not even the jury, was gazing in his direction. Everybody was staring at the envelope. One juror, a middle-aged woman with glasses, couldn't stop glancing at it. Her hand kept twitching toward her notebook, like she wanted to write, "What's in there?" Even Kody kept darting glances at it between pretending to listen to his lawyer. Robyn's eyes, however, never left Meri's face. The speech ended, and Meri's attorney stood. His voice was calm, confident. He didn't talk about innocence or guilt. He talked about truth. The truth, he said, isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks in quietly and waits for the right moment to speak. Meri's eyes met his for a split second, and he gave the smallest nod, a silent agreement between them that the moment was coming. The judge leaned back in his chair, scanning the room. "Very well. Let's call our first witness." But even as the trial began, no one forgot about the envelope. It sat there, silent but powerful, like a sleeping giant in the middle of the room, and everyone knew, once it woke up, there would be no going back. The courtroom was still buzzing from the tension of Meri's entrance when the prosecutor rose from his seat. He was a lanky man in a black suit, slicked back hair, his voice as bitter as the cut of the air. He walked to the middle of the room, ensuring his eyes swept over the jury, the judge, and lastly, deliberately, fixated on Meri Brown. "Your Honor, members of the jury, today you will learn how Meri Brown masterminded the downfall of the Brown family fortune. You will watch her plot it, carry it out, and attempt to hide what she had done." Meri didn't flinch. Not a blink. Not a twitch. The prosecutor paused a second with the words suspended in the air before going on. "Her theft of confidential business documents, files of bank statements, contracts, private letters, documents to be returned to this court, documents intended to safeguard the family's wealth during this trial, but lost to her instead, stolen, concealed and all but destroyed." A ripple of muttering ran through the gallery. Christine Brown's eyebrows jumped. Janelle shook her head slowly, as if she hadn't heard a word. The prosecutor's voice was growing louder, riding on the tension. This was not a blunder. This was intentional. And the individual who was hurt most, who was most harmed, was none other than Kody Brown, the man who trusted her for decades. Kody nodded at the defense table, his eyes fixed on the jury. He wanted them to visualize him as the victim, deceived by the wife he loved. Robyn sat beside him, with her arms folded tightly, lips pursed into a tentative line. The prosecutor got started presenting his case to the jury. He told of late evening trips to the family's common office. He told of how Meri had access codes no other person did. He told of unexplainable withdrawals from the business account of the family the weeks leading up to the trial. And he continued, "When we went looking through her house, we discovered remnants of shredded paper in her fireplace. These were not bills from some years ago. These were pages from the vanished files." Gasps from the gallery. The judge rapped his gavel. "Order." Nevertheless, the hum didn't completely cease. Kody leaned in towards his lawyer, saying something with a smirking half-smile. Robyn cocked her head towards him, a glimmer of pleasure in her eyes. But Meri sat there as stone. Her lawyer leaned forward beside her, muttering under his breath. She shook her head once. Her hands remained clasped tightly in her lap, the envelope still beside her like a silent watchdog. The prosecutor wasn't done. He dug into his briefcase and produced a photograph. In it, Meri was standing in front of a glass-fronted office building at night, with what appeared to be a brown folder in her hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," the prosecutor told them, "this photo was taken by a security camera 3 nights before the files went missing. This is her. This is the proof." He passed the photograph to the bailiff, who distributed it to the jury. A few jurors leaned closer, studying the image. One man frowned. Another tilted his head. The picture was grainy, clear enough to show Meri's face, but not enough to reveal what was in the folder. Still, the prosecution was confident. She was caught red-handed. And throughout this trial, we will demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that she set out to sabotage this case, to hurt Kody Brown, and to leave with a fortune. The judge looked over at the defense table. "Does the defense want to make an opening statement at this time?" Meri's lawyer rose. He was younger than the prosecutor, with a placid, almost careless self-assurance. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth isn't always what it seems. And sometimes, the person being accused is not the person who should be on trial. The prosecutor smirked. But Meri's lawyer didn't take the bait. You've just been shown a photograph. Grainy, unclear, taken from a distance. You've been told it proves guilt. But ask yourself this. Where's the proof of what was in that folder? Where's the proof that anything was stolen? And most importantly, where's the proof that my client Meri Brown acted with the intent they claim? He began walking slowly toward the jury box, lowering his voice for effect. What if I told you that the individual you believe to be guilty isn't the mastermind? What if I told you there is more to this tale than the Browns have ever owned up to? Kody leaned forward uncomfortably. Robyn bristled. The lawyer nodded toward the envelope. Within this envelope is proof that will reveal the true story, not the story you've been fed in tabloids, not the story constructed on rumors, but the truth. And when you see it, you will know precisely what has been going on, and precisely who has been lying to you. Some of the jurors edged forward. The gallery was now frozen in silence, its ears straining to hear every word. The judge glanced from one table to the other. Very well, prosecution may call its first witness. The Browns' old accountant was the first to testify. A jittery man in an inexpensive suit. He did not look at Meri while on the stand. Yes, Meri had access to the business passwords. She could sign on at any time. The prosecutor nodded. And would she be able to see confidential financial information? Yes. The defense lawyer stood up. Mr. Green, would Kody Brown also possess these passwords? Yes. And Robyn Brown, the accountant paused, then exhaled. Yes. Everyone on the leadership team had access. A buzz passed through the gallery. The defense lawyer gave a wry smile and sat back down. But the prosecution wasn't finished. They called a neighbor who said he had seen Meri emerging from Robyn's office late one night, looking around nervously. The defense fired back, stating the neighbor was 2 streets away and could not possibly see into the office or know what Meri was holding. It was a tug-and-pull war. But one thing was certain. The prosecution was basing its entire case on circumstantial evidence. And still, Kody and Robyn appeared to be certain they had already won. When the court broke for lunch, tension had only increased. Reporters scrambled out to report the latest. Fans argued in whispers. Christine and Janelle disappeared through a side door without even talking to anyone. Meri remained seated, her fingertips grazing the rim of the envelope. Her attorney leaned in. When we open it, everything changes, he breathed. She didn't respond. She simply looked straight ahead at Kody, who finally that day averted his gaze. When the court reconvened after lunch, the mood was different. The gallery chatter was subdued, almost a whisper, as if everyone were mindful that they were moving closer to the time when that envelope would be opened. The jurors took their seats again, some still nursing coffee, others taking notes from the morning hearing. Kody and Robyn came back to the defense table with an air of confidence about them, their mutters swift and abrupt. Meri came in last, her stance still as firm as it had been the whole morning. The envelope was back in her hand, always in her hands, never out of her sight. She placed it on the table and moved it so it was facing her precisely. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Simmons, he addressed the prosecutor. You may continue. The accountant's returned prosecutors called the accountant, Mr. Green, in an attempt to pin down the chronology of the lost files. Mr. Green, on the evening of March 4th, around 9:43 p.m., it appears the secure business account for the family was logged into. Who logged in? Green fidgeted in the witness stand. The account was logged in using Mrs. Meri Brown's account information. A couple of jurors jotted notes. The prosecutor jumped on it. And then what occurred after that login? Some sensitive files were downloaded. The prosecutor addressed the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the cyber trail. The evidence that this wasn't an accident. This was intentional theft. The cross-examination. Meri's attorney stood slowly, zipping up his jacket. Mr. Green, you previously testified that several individuals, Kody, Robyn, and Meri, all had access to these accounts, right? Yes. And is it true that the system didn't need a physical password input if someone had previously stored the credentials on a device? Yes, that's true. So theoretically, some other person could have logged into the account from a device in Meri Brown's name. The accountant paused. It's possible. Yes. The defense attorney smiled weakly. No further questions. The prosecutor's jaw clenched. This was not the slam dunk moment they had anticipated. The neighbor's story. Then the neighbor appeared again. That same woman who testified she saw Meri leaving Robyn's office at night. She took the stand, her confidence a bit greater than it had been that morning. Yes, I did see her. She was in a black coat, holding something under her arm. She seemed sneaky. A murmur of laughter coursed through the gallery at the use of the word sneaky, but the prosecutor continued. Would you describe her as being suspicious? Yes, definitely. When cross-examination time came, Mary's attorney went to the witness box. Mrs. Jenkins, how close is your house to Robyn's office? About 2 streets. And you described it as being at night? Yes. How far away were you when you supposedly saw Mrs. Brown? About 100 feet. And you were outside your house in the dark 2 blocks away. And you say you could make out the face of your neighbor and what she was holding. The confidence of the neighbor wavered. Well, I mean, I do know what she looks like. Did you see what was in what she was holding? No. The defense attorney nodded minimally. No more questions. The photo reveal. The prosecutor now appeared poised to introduce their strongest ace. He gestured to a sheaf, which was wheeled in by an assistant on a tiny cart with a digital screen. The lights lowered fractionally as the grainy security photo flickered on the screen. There she was, Meri, standing beside the office door, clutching what looked like a brown folder. The prosecutor jabbed his finger at the screen. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the moment she took the missing files. Kody sat up straighter, his eyes fixed on the jury, as if trying to will them into agreement. Robyn's lips curled into the faintest smile. But the defense wasn't rattled. Mary's lawyer stood and took a slow step toward the screen. Your Honor, the prosecution asserts this picture is evidence of guilt. But let's look at the facts. The photo was time-stamped 3 days prior to the supposed theft. And the photo isn't clear enough to determine what the folder contains. Assuming that is even a folder. He pressed a remote, zooming in on the photo until the pixels fuzzed. It could be a folder. It could be a book. It could be a stack of magazines. This is speculation, not proof. The envelope on display. As the cross-examination ended, Mary's lawyer placed his hand gently on the envelope. Every eye in the courtroom followed the movement. Your Honor, he stated, at the right moment, this envelope will tell you the truth regarding the lost files. But for that, I will just say this. The guilty party is not sitting at this table. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly not able to look at Meri. Robyn's jaw clenched. The gallery erupted into whispers once more. The judge had to hit his gavel twice before the room quieted. The bailiff's concern. At a brief recess, the bailiff walked up to Mary's attorney discreetly. Hey, sir! You have to watch out. That envelope's become a target. I've had eyes on it all day. The attorney looked at Meri. She did not appear concerned. Let them stare, she said in a soft tone. They can't prevent the truth now. Back in session. The afternoon continued with additional witnesses. A technical expert who explained about IP addresses. A security guard who verified the photo was real but acknowledged the video was incomplete. Every time the prosecution attempted to close the net, the defense picked holes in it. It was becoming apparent to the jury that this case wasn't as tight as Kody and Robyn had painted it to be. But the envelope remained closed, untouched, like a storm cloud on the horizon that everyone had known was going to burst. Late in the afternoon, the judge signaled that he would bring one final witness on before the day's adjournment. It was a surprise name, someone no one would have imagined stepping into the courtroom. The doors opened, and in walked a man in a black suit, with briefcase in hand. His expression was unreadable, but Robyn's face turned pale at the sight of him. The prosecutor looked confused. Mary's lawyer smiled faintly, and the envelope still sat there silent, waiting for tomorrow. Morning light streamed through the high windows of the courthouse, as the crowd filed back in for what everyone knew would be the day. News vans lined the street outside. Security was more stringent. 2 additional deputies guarded the doors, eyeing each face. The air vibrated with that heavy charged weight, as if the instant before a storm. The gallery was full inside, with onlookers standing at the back when the chairs were exhausted. Microphones were shifted by reporters. Fans made soft calls of prediction. Some attested that financial records were inside the envelope. Others claimed it was a letter of confession from another person. But no one guessed what was really inside. The unexpected witness. The judge entered, and the bailiff called the court to order. The first move of the day came from Meri's attorney. "Your Honor," he said, "the defense would like to call our own witness, a Mr. Daniel Cross." The man in the black suit from the previous afternoon stepped forward. Robyn visibly flinched. Kody leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Daniel was sworn in, then sat. Meri's attorney strolled slowly back and forth in front of him. "Mr. Cross, would you please inform the court your occupation?" "I'm a licensed private investigator." The prosecutor stood up ready to object, but the judge raised a hand. "Proceed, Mr. Cross," the attorney went on. "Were you employed to investigate the case of the missing Brown family records?" "Yes." "By Mrs. Meri Brown." A wave of whispers swept across the gallery. "The surveillance footage." The defense attorney clicked a remote. The screen behind the witness stand flickered on, not with the grainy image the prosecution had presented, but with new footage. It featured Robyn Brown, standing in the same office the documents had vanished from. She was clutching a thick brown folder. The folder. The timestamp, 2 nights prior to the supposed theft by Meri. The footage then shifted to Robyn handing over the folder to a man driving a black SUV outside the complex. The man's face was partially covered, but enough was visible to verify it was someone subsequently identified with dealing in off-the-books financial dealings. Robyn's hand went to her mouth. Kody leaned into her, whispering in a hurry. She shook her head, with panic dancing in her eyes. "The money trail." The defense attorney didn't let up. "Mr. Cross, did you find any financial activity related to Mrs. Robyn Brown?" "Yes. We had a bank account in her name under a pseudonym. Records list several deposits that coincide with withdrawals from the Brown family business account." He clicked again, displaying a spreadsheet of transactions, amounts, dates, account numbers. The room exploded. Reporters rushed to write it all down. Christine, who sat in the gallery, smirked. Janelle's lips compressed into a thin, knowing smile. The judge slammed the gavel. "Order in the court." The envelope is opened. The defense attorney turned at last, putting his hand on the envelope before Meri. "Your Honor, if it please the court, we would like to enter the final bit of evidence. The contents of this envelope." The judge nodded. "Proceed." The gallery was silent as a tomb. Not a cough, not a shuffle, only the soft snap of cameras as Meri rose, took the envelope and moved toward the bench. Her heels were the only sound in the hush. Click, click, click. Each step was like the beat of a war drum. She cracked the wax seal with a controlled snap, then reached into it. Her hands pulled out a batch of glossy photographs and several pages of typed text, stapled together. She placed them in the judge's hand. "These," she said, "are sworn testimony and photographic evidence of who actually stole the files and why. The real story." The judge read through the papers. His eyebrows went up. "Mr. Simmons," he said to the prosecutor, "you may want to see this." The prosecutor flipped through the pages, his face draining of color. Inside were photos showing Robyn placing the missing files in Meri's office desk drawer late at night. Signed statements from 2 employees who witnessed Robyn instructing them to find the folder in Meri's desk the next morning and call Kody immediately. Emails between Robyn and Kody about how this will make her look guilty enough to lose everything. Gasp-filled murmurs ran through the courtroom. Kody's face turned bright red. Robyn's hands shook in her lap. "Meri speaks." The judge addressed Meri. "Mrs. Brown, would you like to make a statement?" She stepped forward, turning to face the jury and the packed gallery. "For months now, I've been labeled a traitor. I've been blamed for tearing down the family I spent 30 years of my life building. But I didn't steal those files. I knew who did, and I knew if I said a word too soon, they'd destroy the evidence. So I waited. I let them believe they'd won. And in the process, I gathered everything I needed to clear my own name." Her voice did not falter. "This is not about revenge. It's about the truth." And the truth is, Kody and Robyn didn't attempt to destroy me. They attempted to protect their own secrets by doing this to me. The courtroom erupts. A uproar erupted. Robyn disbelieved, mouthing, "No, that is not true." Kody attempted to rise, but the judge's gavel came crashing down. "Enough. This court will consider all evidence before continuing." The defense lawyer walked back to the table, the blank envelope now tucked in a neat fold in his hand. The tempest had finally erupted, and Kody and Robyn were right in the line of fire. By day's end, the gallery hummed with astonishment. The prosecution had to ask for a recess to consider the fresh evidence. Journalists were already dubbing it the Brown family betrayal bombshell. But Meri, she remained still, eyes looking straight ahead. The envelope was out of sight, but she was not disturbed. She had played the waiting game. And now, the secret was revealed. The judge's gavel came down with a force that shook the air itself. "This court finds," he started, but the torrent of voices in the gallery overwhelmed him. Pressmen were already tapping furiously, cameras flashing, hungry to record every moment of this historical Brown family meltdown. "Meri Brown," the judge went on, "you have established your case beyond reasonable doubt. This court rules in your favor." Gasps of shock moved around the room. Kody's head fell into his hands. Robyn's eyes burst into angry tears, her lips quivering as she said something under her breath. A prayer? A curse? No one knew, but Meri was not rejoicing. She merely closed her eyes for a second, as if allowing the victory to seep into her marrow. Kody stood up abruptly, his fingers shaking as he pointed at her. "You think you've won?" His voice broke. "You've ruined this family, everything we worked for gone." Meri's eyes met his, firm and unwavering. "No, Kody, you ruined this family when you sacrificed truth for deception, and love for domination. Today was only the evidence." The judge banged the gavel again. "Order in the court. Bailiff, remove Mr. Brown." As Kody was escorted towards the door, the envelope, now vacant, remained on the evidence table. A quiet reminder that once opened, the truth can never be closed again. Robyn yelled after him, but her voice broke and the words disintegrated. She glanced at Meri over her shoulder, her eyes brimming with something that wasn't altogether anger. It was fear. Meri grasped her bag and moved toward the door, ignoring the blinding flashes of the cameras. The reporters yelled questions. "Are you going to address the press? Was it revenge? What's next for you, Meri?" She did not respond. She simply walked, each footstep resonating like the ring of a bell that signals the end of a period. Outside the courthouse, the crowd parted. Some clapped, others stood in stunned silence. And somewhere, amidst the chaos, Meri smiled for the first time in years. Not because she had defeated Kody, but because she had finally set herself free. And the Brown family? They would never be the same. Because when the truth finally reveals itself, it doesn't just end the struggle, it changes everything.